All right, may the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in Yahweh's sight. He is our strength and our Redeemer, and it's in His name, which is His authority, that we pray, praise, proclaim, project, and protect this message. Amen. Amen. Thank you, everybody, for being on. Trying to get back on track. Oh, just realized I need to grab one more device. Sorry, y'all. Hold on 1 second. Hold on 1 second. I shall return in a second. Sorry about that. Just realized we don't have the stuff ready for our podcast. So without the stuff for the podcast, can't get going. My bad. Hold on. Okay. All right, let's try this again. Hello, Shalom fam. How's everybody doing? Blessing. Hey, Moda, how you doing? Shalom. Peace be upon everybody. Gonna get ready to get back into. Well, we probably aren't going to start with the Revelation. We're not probably. We're not going to start back with the Revelation series just yet, due to the fact that not sure if everybody is aware that we're back on live yet. So we won't jump back into that yet. Today, we're going to be talking about something a little different, and trying to set up these last two devices so we can make sure that everybody's is aware that we're on all the platforms. Well, once again, we give all praise. Well, as always, we give all praise to the Most High, Yahweh Elohim. We give all praise and honor to Him for my wife, the Honorable Maya, who lives a life that's able to be honored. You can follow her on TikTok, YouTube, and her website at Bloom and Flourish. Not A-N-D, but the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. You can also check her out at ChangingLivesInitiative.org. We're thankful and grateful for everybody being on and spending some time with us on this rising. And as we're trying to get things back on track, I guess we're going to shoot for trying to do the. I guess we're going to try to shoot for doing the. Well, I'm trying to say the. The podcast today as well. So we'll get that back on track as well. Not just the podcast for the live session, but also the podcast for. For our 10 a.m. Shabbat Shalom session. All right, cool. But thank you guys. Thank you for being patient. Once again, we came back on live last night for the first time since Tuesday evening. And just thank you guys for kind of being patient. Unfortunately, when because of the way we're still set up, we're getting more used to and setting up the ministerial staff where somebody should be able to fill in for us at some point, right? But until then, right now, we're just kind of working with what we have. So unfortunately, at times, if I'm not able to come on right now, we kind of end up taking a break. But however, we are back. So thankful and grateful. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for those who are taking time out to be on with us. Oh, wow. I thought he was blocked already. He must have been blocked from the other one. Nevertheless, though, thank you all for being on. And we're excited, thankful, and grateful for everything that the Most High has been showing us. And going to talk a little bit different. Once again, we'll wait maybe one more day, maybe a couple more days. We'll see how the Most High does it. But we want to make sure when we get back into the Revelation series that everybody is kind of back with us so we can finish the last two parts of that. Today we're going to talk about the individual versus society. All right, the individual versus society. And we're kind of a continue. Well, not kind of. Basically, this comes out of last night's discussion when we came back on and started talking about that, and how basically if you don't comprehend that there's really no separation between the two, one affects the other and the other affects the other, then we're really not able to move far on a lot of things. A lot of these arguments, conversations, comments, etc., they kind of become they become moot points. What's the point of having a conversation about some of these items if we don't recognize that there's a system, right? And really, when you talk about the individual versus society, the society is affected by the system, right? The system affects this. Watch this. Like, the system teaches the society. The society is going to teach the individual. And hey, Shalom, Sister Deborah, how you doing? And Shalom, Ms. Mac, I see you. So if a lot of times we miss that. And thank you, Agent Dark. Appreciate that. Can someone do a brief explanation of what it is? Can someone do a brief explanation of what it is? I don't understand what it is. Am I the it? Or what am I talking about? I don't know. Michelle, how are you doing? Thanks for being on. Butterfly Effect, how you doing? Big Brother Thomas Ransom. What religion is that? Which one? I guess you're talking about religion that I subscribe to. First of all, we know that the word religion, literally means a legion, that people repetitively do anything. So if you drink coffee every rising, you have a religion. I'm drinking some water. If you drink water and a bunch of other people drink water, that's religious. If you're talking about it becoming a noun, I guess, though, a person, a place, a thing, kind of, sort of, we could say that we are followers of the way, following a very natural, progressive, Afrocentric, I wouldn't even say progressive, right? Just an eternal principle and sept that comes out of a proper precept and gives us a concept that we live by, based off of the Terach, which some people would call the Torah. And hey, shalom, Terry, shalom, I am him. How are you doing? So, shalom, Sister Beverly, how you doing? Shalom to everybody coming on, Brother Clem. We're thankful and grateful. So, I didn't know if I did mention religiosity so far. I apologize. I don't really remember. Shalom, Minister Nice. How you doing? Secret of life is buried in the hair. Okay. Thank you. Battery low going over the Podbean. Oh, okay. Yeah, I hope it lasts for you as well. Hey, Minister Sonia. Hey, Shabbat Shalom. My wife is on. Once again, the honor of Maya is on. Thank you for being on, baby. You can follow her on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish. Once again, that's not A-N-D, but the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. And thank you guys for being on with us, with both of us. Shalom, Sister Shantae. All right, Sister Austral, I think I missed you. You said, what does that mean? What does what mean? I don't understand. You guys got to help me out. And if you want to put questions in the Q&A box at the bottom, you can feel free to. You saw the Almighty Allah. Are you talking about, did I say Elohim? Elohim is like the same as Elohim. It's the original way of saying Elohim. Allah is actually something that's short, comes out of Elohim. Or Elohim, really. Hey, Shalom Lave, how you doing? Is it Lave? Lavi? Blue, Grand Rising to you. Big Bear said, did you know Sweet Alabama is a diss track to Neil Young? Listen to the words on the second verse. Okay, didn't know. Not really into that beef. Not really a big Neil Young person, so I'm not sure what that would or would mean. Maybe I can go down that rabbit hole another time. Just want to know what's being talked about. No problem. I just didn't know what it was. We get a bunch of, we're on 4 different platforms, technically 5 different platforms at the same time, so I'm trying to catch everything, so forgive me if I don't catch it exactly. So I might ask you, because I'm very micro, so I might say, like, what did you mean? Because it's hard for me to deal with the macro without being able to connect the micro. Yes, Shabbat Shalom to you as well. Happy Sabbath to you, gamer. Yep, so today we're going to focus on the individual versus society. You said y'all worship Jesus, PBUH here. I'm sorry. What does PBUH mean? What's not my culture? Um, I'm not. I'm not sure. You're gonna have to help me when I say, because everything is culture, right? So if you just say like, what is that? What is not my culture? This or that? I'm gonna miss the answer each time. I don't know what PBUH means. Culture is important for everything. So culturally speaking, like for example, if you're gonna talk about the Bible, you got to talk about Yisrael or Israel. If you don't talk about it, then you're not gonna be able to recognize it. If you're going to talk about me, you have to talk about multiple cultures and seeing if there's any influence of both of them, right? And how they came together as one, and if they actually match up with the universal culture or the kingdom culture, right? Universal law, natural law, kingdom law, laws of attraction, law first mentioned, et cetera, et cetera. Because my culture is West African. West African is tied to North Africa. The North African is tied to East African, tied to Central Africa. Tied to Jamaica, tied to, Taino, tied to Cherokee, tied to Choctaw, tied to Seminole, tied to Gullah Geechee, right? Do they all have some things in line that are the same? Yes, they do, right? So, when I say I'm Shwe, somebody would say you're Ghanaian. Well, it's like, okay, Ghanaian, as far as what was that part of Ghana that my people are from, what were they originally called? What were those people originally called? Are there any belief systems that keep showing up over and over again? If you can see that, then you can actually see what the culture is. Culture is going to inform your beliefs. Your beliefs are going to inform your emotions. Your emotions are going to inform your feelings. Your feelings are going to inform your mood. Your mood is going to inform your habit. Your effort or energy. Your effort or energy is going to directly inform your habits, or at least increase, decrease, etc. your habits, and then therefore your habits are the culture that you give to the next generation. Right? Or the habits that you have today end up influencing the culture of tomorrow, so to speak. Something that's, circular, cyclical. Hey, Brother Kenyatta, how you doing? You never seen the Q&A box? Yeah, right on the bottom, at least on mine, there's a Q&A box if you look on the bottom of it. So you should have it on yours as well. If you're in the chat, you said that you thought shalom was Jewish, then got confused. Yeah, well, Jewish people use shalom, but before Jewish people existed, before Jewish people started saying that they were Israel and started saying Ashkenazi was Shem, Israelites, Shemitic people, and Shemitic people, Hebrew people, the Avda people, and Israelites, they use the word as well. And that's the tribe that, one of the many different tribes that makes me who I am. And therefore, I use the same greeting, something that we use before others. Okay, well, be careful while you're headed to Alabama. Yep, no problem. But yeah, so we're going to talk about the individual and how the individual and the society go together, right? You got to talk about both going together. And that's part of the problem. Oh, peace be upon him. Do we believe in Jesus? Well, Jesus is okay, so Jesus is not the same as Yahshua, which is what his actual name was. So that's a whole different kind of discussion. So yeah, culturally, getting back to culture, the culture, Yahshua, if his name was originally Yahshua or even Aman Al, then we should probably call him what his name was, rather than what others have decided to call him, which is based on a nickname and not the real thing. You're asking, who do we worship? Yahweh Elohim. That's Abba, Father, Bar, Yahshua HaMashiach, or the Messiah, and at the Holy Spirit, Ruach HaKodesh, or the Vak Hakwadash, excuse me, right? But yeah, that's who we worship. We go by the actual name. And we're in the kingdom of heaven, Radas Shamayim. So we're followers of the way. I think at that point, who is Muhammad to us? First of all, Muhammad is not the key, as much as some people would say that's blasphemy. Ishmael would be the key to comprehending that for us, because Ishmael and Isaac are brothers, which means that anybody who says that they follow Allah or Allahim, my problem is not whether you follow him or worship him or the name, rather. My problem is, do you worship the Most High correctly, right? Based upon proper cultural indicators. So my thing is not to divide, at least not in this particular live session. That's not my mindset. If Ishmael is my brother, then he's my brother, right? Now, can we argue some things like brothers do? Sure. But if Ishmael is my brother, he's my brother. So I leave him there, right? So getting back to the individual versus society. And this is kind of, getting us back to what we were talking about last night. Not kind of, it's getting us back to what we were talking about last night. And also it's helping us to recognize, even in this conversation, you can probably see the same thing going on, right? Shalom, Minister Tamer, how you doing? So you can see the same thing. No problem, Supreme. No offense taken. So, so when we're talking about the individual versus society, right? The individual versus society is very important. And it's necessary because a lot of people are going to miss it. Because what happens is, if we don't recognize the society affects the individual, and that the individual affects the society simultaneously, then we're missing pretty much everything that's there, right? So it doesn't matter if we're talking religion. Shalom, wow, how you doing? It doesn't matter if we're talking religion. It doesn't matter if we're talking about sexism, racism, schisms, classism, redlining, chauvinism, et cetera, right? Masochism, you could say whatever way you want to go to, right? People with lust issues, whatever. We always do this weird thing where we act like there's no system, right? And remember, one of the keys is that what? Even if you're talking biblically from the Tanakh or the Torah, what are we talking about? We're talking about what? That Yahshua came to give you the kingdom. What is the kingdom? The kingdom is a system. The king is over the system, and the king what? Dominates the system, right? Because the system is the king is the system. You can't have a system without the king or the queen, and you can't have a king or queen without a system, right? So the system has to be there in order to have the discussion, right? You can't have capitalism. Capitalism is what? A system based off of capital, right? A system in which whoever has the most capital is running the system, right? Thank you, Minister Tamer, for the love, right? That doesn't matter what you're dealing with. There's a culture, right? There's a system. There's a reason why you wear the clothes that you wear. There's a reason why you prefer the language that you prefer. If you have multiple languages, heck, for some of us, there's a reason why we only speak one language, right? There's a reason behind all those things. You said, like, people want to know what we're judging this off of, the holy books, desires, hearsay. So if I'm talking about the Tanakh or the Torah, I mean, it's pretty, I guess it's, well, it's not self-explanatory, but once again, that's why people need to get into the culture. Also too, people, I guess, we do this every Rising at 8 a.m. Eastern New York time, and we do this Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern New York time. We have a YouTube channel as well, and the podcast. You can go and check out the recordings to catch up and see the culture, right? Because we comprehend that the culture is very important. And so, once again, though, even that's a societal thing, right? Very much so in society, to where you'll have a lot of people who are going to do this thing of, oh, okay, give me exactly what I need, right? What I'm doing, make it make sense in my system, in my culture, and this and that or whatever. But it's like, if it's my culture is what it is, right? You Gullah, Black Indian, and this popped up. That's what's up. Yeah. I'm not Blackfoot. We have, on my wife's side, we have Blackfoot and Seminole, and I'm Gullah as well, right? So you got to understand that, like, whatever your culture is, it stands on its own, right? That's why you should always respect somebody's culture, right? So if somebody's truly just giving you their culture, there's going to be, sure, some explanation and things necessary. What I'm saying is that if somebody's going to truly give you their culture, they're giving you something that's standing. Like, if I talk about Yashtel, I'm talking about a culture, that goes back, really, that, because even Yashtel's culture, Israel's culture, comes from cultures that go back pre-flood, if you want to go there, right? But people will do this weird thing of, well, that there was no Israel until after they left from Kemet and blah, blah. And it's like, but before that, there was the land of Goshen. And before that, we go back to Avda, right? And before we go to Avda, we go back to Noah. And before Noah, we go back, to Canaan even. And then Canaan, going back to Abel. And then Abel going back, to Seth. And Seth going back to, to Adam. Like, so there's a particular culture that comes out, right? But people will make a knee-jerk reaction. Got to give this, got to get that, right? So like this is okay. That's fine, Justice. So like when we get that. And I'm sorry, what else? How can you understand if you don't listen? Let those, yeah, exactly, right? And, I'm sorry. My wife said Blackfoot, Seminole, and Creek. I apologize. I didn't say Creek, right? Am I an Israelite? Yes. Am I Israel? Yes. Israelite is something different, but you could say I'm Israelite as well. But, I'm not saying that you're judging. I'm just saying that I know you're waiting for me to answer everything. I'm saying that there's a system in place, right? Like even when we get to this thing, first of all, like let's go back to it, right? Yeah, we could talk. Well, we could talk about Methuselah as well. Methuselah is where you're getting into, after, a little bit after Enoch and all that, right? Nevertheless, though, hey, Shalom, Joe, how you doing, bro? Hey, Shalom, Sister Betty, how you doing? Hey, Von, I'm Muslim, take witness. Okay. All right, no problem. So once again, we're brothers. So, I don't deal with the societal things. See, culturally speaking, it's easy for me to deal with that because we're brothers. So what do you do with your brother? You love your brother. If you have a disagreement, okay. If my brother still needs me, I'm there, right? But I want to get to the system versus individual. As you can see, like just even trying to deal with this. Hey, Shalom, Sister Lori. Even just trying to deal with this within itself. A lot of people get frustrated. Shalom, Tiger. A lot of people get frustrated, or conversations can become to a place where you're getting frustrated just because we're not seeing things righteously, or at least, I won't even say righteously. We're not seeing things eye to eye, or at least able to see things through the proper prism, because we're having a societal debate. We're having a systemic debate. And this system that we're in was literally designed, was created purposefully, right? On purpose, in purpose, with intent, to ensure that we would not come together through the proper lens, through the proper culture. You got to comprehend once again that the society is not separate from the individual. The individual is not separate from the society. So what do you do if you want an individual to lead their society, their culture, and claim another? And what do you do if you need an individual to not be intact with his own culture and his own people, and you need them to go ahead and fight against it from another culture? What do? You change the society, right? You change the culture, right, to where it doesn't even make sense. Remember growing up, a lot of us probably heard terms like African booty scratcher and stuff like that. But you African, why would you? What? And that doesn't even make sense. What does that mean? Who created that? You think black people came up with that, right? A lot of us, in the 80s, went to sleep one night and we were okay with being black. Some of us were even copper. Some of us were native, right? Some of us were okay with being African. And then all of a sudden we woke up and somebody told us we were African American. But I mean, what happened? What happened societally? What happened? we were, right? We were black. I mean, we were okay with being black and proud. And then all of a sudden we became African American, right? That's a systemic, matter of fact, that's systematic, right? If you get it, like that's actually systematic. Somebody came by and changed the very essence of who you were. Told you were no longer who you're supposed to be. That was systematic, right? A lot of people don't catch that. Like that was systematically done. Right? Systematic means somebody did it on purpose. Then they put it in purpose where it's systemic. Systemic means that you will do it whether you like it or not. And people miss that. People don't catch that part of it. A lot of people are living in, not a lot. All of us are living in a system, but which system are you choosing to live in? You know what I'm saying? Like, thank you, Minister Select Sonia. Like, that's real talk. Like, what system do you choose to live in, to abide in? Okay, amen. Amen. Real quick, Yahweh, we're praying for Sister Betty and her back. We come before you knowing that you can heal all. We ask that you help her in any way, shape, or form. We ask that you be able to help her to be able to rest as she needs to, and we leave that in your hands. It's in the mighty and matchless name of Yahweh that we praise. We're going to protect our sister Aman. And if you guys want to pray for Sister Betty, she said her back is hurt. Pray for her. Keep her in prayer. Aman. Marley Marl, hey, how you doing? All right. Thank you, Bestie London. Appreciate it. Marley Mall says I'm not black. Okay. Okay. I mean, you said you're not African American. Okay. What? You Moorish? I mean, are you native? Either way, right? I'm fine with being black. You don't have to be black. I'm not black when it comes to, now if you're going to a whole thing of like legal matters, of course, like then I would be a natural man, or possibly on paper a Moor or a freedman or something like that, or just a non-citizen national, a Marylander, since that's where I was born, or whatever, and that gives me rights different from the corporation, or it can attach to some of those rights that we have, that Morocco gave America. I don't know if that's where you're going, or if you just say you're not black, African American, or you don't want to be labeled, that's up to you, right? That I'm just talking about from my perspective, from the culture that I represent. You said brainwashed from manipulation and misconception. Okay. Yeah. Thanks for being part of the community, Jay. My wife said, yeah, those feed the children ads, the media made us hate us. Yeah. And Minister Malcolm X once said, who taught you to hate your hair? Who taught you to hate your nose, right? When you talk about somebody else hates you, and black people hate, like Elijah Muhammad, they were saying hated white people and this and that or whatever, but it's like, well, who taught you to hate yourself? That's cultural. Oh, okay, how you doing, cousin? Muskegee? Or Muskogee? Is it Muskogee? I'm messing that up, but thank you for being on nonetheless. I apologize. Thanks for being with us, Tyler. To be called proverbs and bywords, or proverbs and bywords. Yeah. Brainwash from okay. Truth, freelance, self-employment. Yeah. Yeah, whose jurisdiction are you under, right? And that's all we're talking about. When you're talking about culture, that's what you're dealing with. Like if you become someone who's sovereign, all sovereigns, no matter what you want to call yourself, if you want to call yourself a Moor, native, indigenous, black, copper, whatever you want to call yourself, I'm a human. Okay, well, okay, as human being, be careful which system you're talking about human being in, because it has multiple meanings in different cultures, different systems, right? That's always important. Nevertheless, though, right, whichever culture you subscribe to, really every sovereign believes that everybody should be sovereign. You should have the right to make whatever choices you want and deal with whatever consequences come with them. Consequences can be positive or negative, right? Kay says, I don't refer to myself as African American. I'm American who happens to be black. Well, that's cool. If that's what you choose. So once again, you've chosen that. And I don't have an issue with that personally. As far as you have a right to do whatever you want. Right now, here's why I don't call myself an American, nor do I call myself, here's why I don't call myself an American in the same sense that you do, and I don't get into the I'm an American that happens to be black thing, all right? Legally speaking, can we just go to legally? Like so in other places, people make the spiritual so mystical that it's no longer practical, right? Let's just be practical, right? Everything that we do should have some kind of practicality to it. So practically speaking, if you were to go to court and say that you were an American, what would you be saying? Do you know? And I'm not trying to get on your case. I just want to use this as a tool, right? Some of you have already taken, it's our pleasure, Betty. Some of you have already taken, sovereignty with us and things like that, right? Through our classes, right? But what do you, if you were to go to court and say you're an American, do you know legally what you just said? And, right? Anova says, I had 35 years working in Babylon's War Machine programmed in that system. Yeah, I was too. I'm only 35 years in, but, I was too. Don't want a label from columnist. Oh, okay. I mean, I guess I see what you're saying. Right, but once again, how did I find the culture? Well, we'll get into that in a second, but just want to ask the question once again. I'm looking for that answer real quick. So, if you go to court and you say, I'm an American, when you show up in court, you say, I'm an American. They say, what are you? You say, I'm an American. When you sign on the paperwork, I'm an American. What do you mean? Do you know? You said you don't? Yeah, a lot of people don't. You said, how do you find your culture given systemic history or systemic oppression or change and stuff? I mean, we can talk about that in a little bit, sure. But hold on one second. Right to do whatever? No, society still has rule. That's not what I'm saying, Marley Marl. Okay, I think if you're thinking that, let's just go ahead and dismiss that, right? If I'm sovereign, I believe laws. Laws protect rights. Rights rights are things that are unalienable. You have unalienable rights, right? Unalienable rights means that you have the right to do whatever you want, as long as your rights don't mess up somebody else's rights. If they do, we have laws in place to protect that person you're trying to violate rights when saying your rights should supersede theirs. So everybody has the right to be able to do what they want as long as it doesn't affect anybody else. When it affects somebody else, there are laws in place. Laws don't create rights, laws protect rights, right? So I have the right to be able to speak however I want, right? I do. But if I go into somebody's private business and I try to speak however I want, I'm messing up their private business. So if they don't want cursing, which I don't curse, but let's just say I do, if I'm cussing out people all the time, then I go in somebody's private business or somebody's private home and I start cussing out people and I try to stay there. There's a law that says that they can call the police on me to remove me because my rights are no longer really correct. I'm violating somebody else's rights. I don't have the unalienable right to violate somebody else's rights. Therefore, there's a law in place to protect us. Okay? So that's pretty much simple. I'm sorry, Colère said, but she is an American. I missed that part. So once again, like we're on all the time, every rising 8 a.m. Eastern New York time, every Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern New York time, right? You're a multi-dimensional being. Okay, so once again, if you show up in court and you say you're a multi-dimensional being, what's that going to do? Okay, laws are in place in whatever dimension, because there are dimensions, right? But whatever dimension you are in, or whatever dimension you are, which is a whole nother part of that, you still have to be able to be lawful in the dimension. Hey Pooh, how you doing? Thanks for being on, if I didn't say so already. Okay. Claiming to be an American means you fall under their rules and jurisdiction. Yes and no, but yes, right? What kind of American are you? See what I'm saying? Like, so people just say this stuff. People go, I'm not American. I'm just an American that happens to be black. First of all, if you look up the original definition of an American, the original definition of American is what? A copper-colored person indigenous to North and South America. That was actually the definition given by the same people who are in charge today, right? So what happened to make it to where the American that used to be a copper-colored person indigenous to America, North and South America, what happened to change that? See, you're so much you're an American that happens to be black. The original American is black, copper color, whatever you want to call it, right? Especially if your family, if you have some of your family that's indigenous to America, boom, it's over, right? So when you go into a courtroom, though, when you say American, and your paperwork is different than that, right? Now we're going to have an issue because you don't really know what you're saying, because you don't recognize that your rights have been given away, right? So what you do is you go by this thing that happened, leading up to 1776, right? Where you had that Boston Tea Party, and they had killed off Americans, copper-colored native indigenous people to Turtle Island, to North America, South America as well, right? They started killing them off and removing them. And then what they did is they said, hey, there was a fight about capitalism versus chattel slavery. They said it was only about the tax, but go do some research. You'll find out that the tax was a piece of the capitalism piece that was coming, and they didn't like it, right? And so they went on a boat, and the same people they had killed off and scalped, they put on blackface. They painted their face to look like them. Then put on fake me out war paint on top of that, like the $5 Indian thing. They went out onto a boat. They threw tea into the water with the tax stamp on it, and they said what? They said, we are against the Stamp Act. We're against you trying to be on us. We're against you saying that we have to be under you anymore. We are the actual Americans. They killed them off, pushed them off, and then literally put on blackface and put on the things that they used after they had scalped them, then took the stuff off of the scalps that they had saved, put them on their heads, and then said, now we're the Americans. Now we're, instead of it being copper colored, people who are indigenous here, we are the Americans. Which was illegal, which is why until later on, Morocco has to give them the right after they win, because no country will do business with them. Morocco actually has to, another black or copper colored people have to give them a sultan nonetheless, by the way, right, has to give them the right to become a country and does business with them, and then they become sovereign. And then after that, of course, a little bit later, they start lying and they don't use the contract that they had, but they still have to do certain things contractually. As far as even if you see a Moorish flag, or if you've ever seen a half American, half Moorish flag, go research that, see what that means, right? I believe that every person, especially black person or copper colored person or whatever, but I believe every person, if you understood what you're dealing with, should make sure they have a Moroccan flag posted somewhere out in public on their property to make sure people know, don't mess with us. If you really comprehend that, right? So when you're saying you're an American, are you saying that you're the original American? Are you saying that you are the fake me out American? Then on top of that, now there's a fake me out American. What do I mean by that? So you had the original American, copper colored person, indigenous to America. Black's Law Dictionary, right? The same thing they use in court. So you could go look it up for yourself. But then you had the second American, which is this new American that took over, said, I'm the American. But then now you have, right, and that happens in what, 1787, 1789, whatever. But then you have 1865, really the 13th Amendment, which now says that there were supposed to be freedmen, which were some indigenous people and some Africans brought over as well, and some, indigenous people of South America, but they're technically Americans too, and all these people that were brought over in slavery, right? You now have all these people who are brought over from different places, right? And when they were brought over from these different places, what happened? When they were brought over from these different places, what happened? They were brought over, and but they were enslaved. They got to be free, so to speak, and they were freedmen. And they were allowed to have 40 acres and a mule. They started the Freedmen Bank, all right? And they started having all this stuff, started making more money than everybody else. Then all of a sudden, they made laws against the Freedmen Bank, crushed the Freedmen Bank. Frederick Douglass was actually over the Freedmen Bank and was putting his own money in there. He was rich. He was putting his own money in there. Basically was about to bankrupt himself, said, I got to stop because this is too much, right? Reconstruction and all that stuff happens. And then here comes what? The 14th Amendment. The 14th Amendment now says, so the 13th Amendment says slavery's over, even though we can arrest you. So they made all these slave laws, and they said 13th Amendment, if we arrest you, we can still make you a slave. And so you still had slavery happening, just under a different name, even though legally it was still called chattel slavery, right? Capitalism didn't get rid of chattel slavery. But then 14th Amendment comes after that, and they say, all right, 14th Amendment, we're going to stop 14th Amendment. Now, if you're born here, you're no longer a freedman. You have to be an American, but not the original American. You have to be the American that we say we are now when we threw that T off. That's legal. That's talking about practical. So when somebody's saying I'm an American that just so happens to be black, you're somebody that probably just doesn't know that all this stuff exists. And by the way, even besides that, if I go to court, I still got enough sense that if somebody says, okay, what are you? I wouldn't say an American. I wouldn't say that I'm black. I wouldn't say that I'm copper colored, any of that. You know what I would say? I would say that I am a non-citizen national. I am a natural man. Or if you're a female, I am a natural woman. Right? I wouldn't say I'm a human, because a human by law is considered to be a monster. Go look up Black's Law Dictionary. It'll tell you, when you look up human, it'll say sea monster, S-E-E monster, sea monster. And then when you look up monster, you will discover that it's somebody that has no rights. See, so a lot of people that are Americans, they're in the corporation, which is a false version of the United States, that 14th Amendment citizenship, under a whole different set of rules and laws and regulations. But if you are a citizen, a non-citizen national, you're actually a state citizen, or you're actually a citizen who's considered to be sovereign, because state law always supersedes federal law. That's why you can have somebody write, an executive order, or Congress can make a law, but then guess what? The state has to apply it as they see fit. Why does the state have to apply it as they see fit? Because state law supersedes the other law. Right? So that's why I said, when you said, is this maritime law issue? Maritime law can have something to do with it, but that's not really the focus, right? Really, we're talking about, if we were to make it simple, we're talking about public versus private. Right? And like I said, we have classes on this, so this is just very surface level info. But a lot of people don't know the surface level, right? And once again, so since we don't know how the system affects the society and how the society has caused you to do what you do as an individual, and we don't understand that therefore the individuals just simply turn around and keep the same stuff that they were taught and give it back into others in society so that there would still be the same system in place. That's what makes something systemic. So a lot of people are talking about being an American and don't even know what that means. People are talking about being black and don't know what that means. Like, for example, as I told you, right, there's a system set up to try and tell you that black is a bad thing. Like if you in Black's Law Dictionary, being black or being colored or being Negro or being African American, those are all considered to be fake people. Those are considered legally, the term they use is artificial person. So I would never step in the courtroom and talk about how I'm black and I'm proud, because I immediately said I'm artificial. If I'm artificial, I'm under the 14th Amendment citizenship. If I'm under 14th Amendment citizenship, I'm part of the system, or I'm in the system, and I'm also of the system. But I need to be able to finesse the system. I need to be in it and at the same time not of it, legally. But a lot of people don't catch that, right? So once again, the individual versus society. What are we talking about, right? What are we talking about? What's the conversation for real? What are we really doing with this conversation? Who are we really talking about? You said that's horrible, sweet. Yeah, I mean, it's truth, though. It's true. You said there's a gift box and a share button. Maybe I need an update. Oh, okay. Thank you for your gifts, and thank you for even wanting to give one. So why did blacks go into slavery? What do you mean, why did blacks go into slavery? Like, is that I'm just trying to figure out, Ox, if you don't mind my asking, because I'm not saying you're saying this. It seemed that can be taken as why did blacks choose to go into slavery? And I just need to make sure that we're on track with that. Why did blacks go into slavery? No, we the Israelites. Sure. So check out your Bible. Where did Israel go even before we were scattered? Look up Zechariah, Zephaniah, right? Look up Genesis or Barashit, right? Look up Chazon, Revelation. Yes, we must be sealed before others can even be grafted in, but comprehend where your people come from. Like, I'm Shwi, West African. The Bible says we were over there. We kept the commandments, still keep the commandments. And by the way, look at us. About Negro land then, and about Guinea. So yeah, I'm not talking about anything different. We're talking culture. I'm staying on track with culture. Hey, much love back to you, DNB. You said you're an American to where your ancestors came over on boat as slaves. I mean, yeah, if you accept it. Legally, I would never worry about being an American. I don't have to. And my rights are still protected because, once again, it's a system. The system is bigger than America, right? The system is bigger than just one country. The system is worldwide. You said the USA thinks they the only ones who are Americans. Well, that too, right? But that's why we talked about North America and South America, right? But a lot of people miss it. Yeah, exactly. My wife's talking about citizenship, right? Grand Rising, hello, evolve. Yeah, natural law, things like that. Isn't natural on the birth certificate? The word natural? I don't remember. That's a great question. Maybe I'll look it up while we're on. Thank you, Tyler. You said once you start understanding and researching, it will begin to make sense. Yeah. So what right does that give you in court when you say that you are a non-citizen national? Well, first of all, you got to have your paperwork together, because you can say it and it not be true. Even though there's ways if you know how to say it, but basically non-citizen national has to be treated with all the protection of the Constitution and the state constitution, which precedes the Constitution. And it depends on where you are. If you're in federal court, then you need to speak United States Constitution. Right? That's when you need to speak federal law. But a lot of people go on the state law acting like they can do stuff. So we're talking about public, private. We're talking about federal versus state. We're talking about natural versus, artificial, natural man versus artificial person. Right, we're talking about corporations. Matter of fact, look at the definition of capitalism. Capitalism is defined as what? We're talking about a system in which politics and economics. This is the Google definition. Google it for yourself. Politics is a system in which politics and economics are used to control trade and industry. That trade and industry is controlled by private corporations or private citizenship rather than by the state or the government. Or state also means country. When you talk about 50 states, you're talking about 50 countries. So the natural man, or the non-citizen national, has the opportunity to be able to step in and say, hey, you will treat me as a natural man, or you will treat me, if you're a female, you will treat me as a natural woman, is what you should say. And when we say that, basically the court looks at us different. We're saying that we have unalienable rights that we're standing on. Somebody else who goes into court and for example, they say, how do you plead? You say, well, I plead not guilty. I plead the other one, right? Well, if you plead, animals plead. They're asking you specific language. If they, you talk about human rights, human being is a monster. Monsters, if you look up definition of monster in the court, monster means that what? That you basically have no rights. Why? Because if you're a actual real human being, in their system, you're actually somebody that's adverse to it, because if you're a human being, you're somebody that stands on your own ground, says that you're sovereign, you can rip their system apart. Go see Willie Lynch letter for that, right? Where he says language is a particular institution. Right? You can speak, if you can speak somebody else's language, you will be able to see that they speak two different ways. He said in the Willie Lynch letter, he made a point to say, so if you have a slave and they speak English, but they don't speak English that well, you can say to them, man, this is you see our land over here, this is nice land. And somebody will say, and that slave would say, oh yeah, this is nice land, but you don't own this land. Right? But if you know English better, and I say this is nice land, or see our land, this is nice land, you'll say, well, it's nice and everything, but it's your land. Right? Same people, same conversation, but a little different. Right? Same people, same conversation, a little different. Right? Same thing. You're talking about something legally. So just so knowing legal language, like for example, when people say, we need to fight for civil rights, you have the right to be civil and to be civilized within your own culture. You don't need a law for civil rights. The second that you asked for laws for civil rights, it meant that you were asking for somebody to redefine civil and redefine rights. So now, when they did that, they redefined what rights are. But you have unalienable rights. I don't need civil rights. I don't need to be under any civil rights law, right? Because I have unalienable rights. You can't separate me from my rights. Unless my rights hurt somebody else's right to do what they're doing, there are laws to protect me, whether I'm a private citizen or a public citizen, and you can't do anything to attack that. That's just real, right? You said in court you were Moor. Okay, cool. Do you have your paperwork? Do you have somebody from Morocco that made sure that they signed off on you? Do you have something that makes sure that you sign that connects you to the native tribes? Because you can say that you're Moor and it might work, but if somebody knows what they're doing and goes against you, then you're going to need to make sure that you can prove that. But I have no problem with somebody saying they're a Moor, because a Moor is not a artificial person. A Moor is actually a state of being, as well as considered to be a considered to be a person or a natural man. So yeah, be a Moor. Just make sure you know what you're doing. I have no problem with it. Hey Corbin, how you doing? Colonization changed that. Yeah. Sorry, I'm trying to catch up on these comments. I know there's a lot of them coming at us. But thank you for being on with us. You say you're Hispanic, want to know your history. Where do you start? It depends. First of all, like when you say you're Hispanic, that could be so many different things, right? And a lot of people say that they're Hispanic, but talking about tied to Spain. What part are you talking about other than that? What native tribe? What part of Taino kingdom, so to speak, are you talking about, et cetera, et cetera? What African tie do you have? What tied to native tribes in America? If you're Seminole, you're tied to Mexico. If you're tied to Mexico, you're tied to Aztecs. You're tied to Aztecs, you're tied to Taino. You're tied to Taino, you're tied to Olmecs. You're tied to Olmecs, you're tied to West Africa and South Africa and East Africa. So like, which one are we talking about? It depends. It depends. That's an interesting question, but it's, so many of us have so many different things. We can go so many different ways with that. Let's see. The Tanakh is a book of laws which protects rights for those in Yahweh's kingdom. Amen. The Torah. You said you were unplugged, red pill or blue pill, red for you. All right. Amen. No, it's not on the birth certificate. Okay. It might be because, birth certificates change. I have to do some research because it's like, on Social Security card, it says on there clear as day, you're not supposed to use it for identification, but people still use it for identification and don't know. But then again, new Social Security cards, they don't have that on there. So you don't know that it's not supposed to be used for identification. But technically, anybody using your Social Security number, including the IRS, anybody using your Social Security number to identify you is doing something illegal. And thanks, babe, for the reminder. You can also make sure you catch us on Patreon and stuff. We're going to be catching up on that the next 4 days and make sure that we're doing twice as many things on Patreon. So those who are patrons already, just make sure that you're paying attention. And I'll try to catch up on any comments that you guys have had the last few days. This is the first full day. We're back at it. Had to take a few days off to take care of some medical issues going on with the family. You said birth certificate used to say natural birth? Oh, okay. Yeah, natural birth. Yeah, it does. Okay. True that, yeah. So, yeah, to Sister Barbara, I think, brought it up at first. So, yeah, it did originally used to say natural birth. Michelle said, is a non-citizen national entitled to Social Security benefits? No, you wouldn't want to be. The second that you are, that your Social Security, so you have a Social Security number that was forced on you. Eventually, you want to be able to get rid of that. You won't be able to get rid of it fully, but at least not have it attached to you. You can even write letters and stuff saying, you don't want benefits and privileges, right? If you don't do benefits and privileges, then not only the Social Security number have nothing to do with you, but also the IRS and taxes and stuff don't really have anything to do with you. You only get taxed for benefits and privileges, right? And even when you get into that, you can do some stuff legally as far as how you set yourself up if you got a personal EIN or different things like that going on, right? Nevertheless, though, you don't really want the Social Security number anyways. The goal is not to just be sovereign in title or sovereign in paperwork only. You want to be sovereign as far as I have my own food. You want to be sovereign as far as I don't need a driver's license because you're only licensed. If you're licensed to drive, you give away rights and you have to be under somebody's system. But if you're not signed up for that, you can travel. There's nothing illegal with you traveling in the vehicle. You can make up your own plates. You got to have your paperwork in order first, but you can make up your own plates. You can be in the system. We had somebody who took our class who gave a testimony 2 Saturdays ago we do a weekly meeting for our organization, for our people. And she got on there and she was talking about how she went through the stuff and they had just literally, they didn't even have their new passports yet, but they redid their DS-11, the form to get you your passport, and they updated it. And as soon as it gets updated in the system, they got pulled over. And basically everything was bad on the car. Tags, not traveling with the license, none of that, right? And all the guy did, he came up, asked for information, he put it in the system, he came back, he said, have a nice day. No ticket, no warning, nothing, because she's different in the system, right? It's a different mentality. A lot of people don't know, but so you got to have your paperwork correct and you got to make sure you have certain things together. But as long as you're staying away from the system, how can you be taxed? How can you deal with those things, right? So you don't want to get those benefits. Now, if you're somebody who's getting those right now because you got to survive, you kind of have to do what you have to do. There's still ways where you can protect sovereignty when necessary, and you can kind of put the court in a corner, but that's kind of stuff that has to be taught. And really, even besides that, you have like individual basis depending on what the trial is or what the judge is saying, etc. Because the judge is the trustee. So whatever the trust is or whatever the law is you're dealing with, you got to figure that out and then figure out how the judge would have to, legally deal with it. You might have to do some things to box the judge in before court. You might have to like extend the time you have before you actually go to trial. You might have to like keep acting like you don't know what's going on, and because you have the right to ask as many questions as you want. So you can write on documents, I need these questions answered because I don't know what this and this and this means. I don't know what this word means. So there's tons of different ways you can do things to prolong things, to not have to worry. Like there's people who have prolonged court cases for like 10 years and still nowhere close to going to court because they just, even if they feel like they're wrong and they lose, they just keep prolonging it, right? So there's different things to do, but I don't necessarily like to go that route because I don't like lying too much. That, stuff always comes back to you. Marlon Moore says, why would this court abide by these rules when the system is rigged? The court has to. All law starts with natural law. Really, technically you have kingdom law or spiritual law, but then you have natural law. Natural law leads to substantive law. Substantive law leads to public and private law, right? And then after that, then you can start getting into procedural law and remedial law. And it happens every day. It's not stuff that I just so happen. Like we've had family members that have done this. We have people who are part of this community that have done this, and they've been fine. Everything has to be based on some kind of truth. Even a lie has to have some semblance of truth in it. It has to start somewhere. But yeah, I mean, this stuff is in documentation. You're saying, why would they abide by it? Well, there's then question for you, why would you go into court and say that you're a Moor? If you feel like they're not going to abide by it, why would you go say you're a Moor? The reason you would go say you're a Moor is because you know that would stand in court. So if you know what stands in court, if you know the language of it, then you go to court and you don't have to worry about it. Remember, the society is affecting the individual affects the society. Like there is no state if there aren't sovereigns. If there's no sovereign citizen, I almost used a bad term because there's no such thing as a sovereign citizen. If there's no people that are sovereign to a state, right, then that means that the state can't be sovereign. So the state always wants quite a few people to be sovereign. It might not want everybody to know about it, but it wants quite a few people to know about sovereignty. Look up North Carolina. North Carolina is trying to get back to being a sovereign state. A lot of people don't know that basically really none of the states are sovereign, which means technically kind of sort of none of us are, getting to your point. However, if the government never admitted it, then they have to admit that they're still dealing with being in martial law, which has existed since Lincoln signed that Emancipation Proclamation. That's an executive order. And every executive order has to be under martial law. So if you go to court and somebody tries to get you on something, all you got to do is keep pushing them into a position where they eventually feel like they have to tell you that they're under martial law, which they won't, and case usually is dismissed. Or they settled or whatever. Thanks, Pops Bible Study. Thanks for being on. Does that mean speeding laws would apply? Yeah, so speeding laws apply. Anything you're doing that could endanger somebody else, you have an issue, right? But like if you were to run a stop sign by accident, for example, not like flagrantly, but you did like a rolling stop or something, the police, if they try to pull you over for that, they let that go. Even if you did have a speeding ticket, by the way, you wouldn't necessarily have to show up in court. Because even if you're not sovereign, technically you don't have to show up in court anyways, because people don't know how to deal with that, but you don't have to deal with any of that. At least not the way you've been dealing with it. We're in a system where we shouldn't be of it. You said you thought Moor stood for black. No, Moor does not stand for black. And there are people who call themselves Negro or Negro, by the way. Even people who are in the Noble Drew Ali would have to confess that, right? That the oldest word for Negro that we seem to be able to find, or the oldest word for African tribes, and especially in West Africa, that we seem to be able to find is Negro. That's where that term comes from. We called ourselves that. And people now say, don't call yourself Negro. Why? Because Spanish people told you that it's wrong. So if you go to court, don't call yourself Negro, because that's their culture. Once again, you go into their system, their culture. In their culture, Negroes are bad. So don't call yourself Negro. But if you're in your culture, Negro is who you are. Right? But in order to call yourself Negro outside of court, you need in court call yourself a natural man. You got to have your stuff together, though, right? You got to know what all that stuff is. Oh, thanks, Minister Tamara. Yeah, we have sovereignty classes if you want. Yeah, thank you, Minister Selexo. Yeah, like the Amish community. Yeah, by the way, the land we're working on getting is we're going to have it set up just like Amish land. It's a religious sect, So we're going to have to take we're going to have to be very careful with those words, the words that we use. Thank you, Vincent. Appreciate it. Thanks for being on. Welcome, is it ITZN? I don't know how to pronounce it. Thanks for being on. Prototype Express, thanks for being with us, being part of the community this rising. Can you get court cases to look up? All you got to do is go to Google Scholar. Go to Google Scholar. Not Google. Go to Google Scholar. I think you can type it as one word. Maybe two, I don't know, but it should pop up. Just look up Google Scholar, and when you look up Google Scholar, you can look up laws and cases and do case study and all that stuff right there. You just type it in. It'll give you all the stuff that you need to look at. It'll tell you, as a matter of fact, just type in more, right? You type in MOOR and look up all the cases that come up there and study as many of them as possible. Don't just study the ones that seem like they work, study the ones that didn't work. Study the reason why they didn't work, How do you get into classes? Just, just basically you can DM us. If the DM, direct message us or just send me, something on there. If you look on our page, not the live right now, but on the actual, page, not where it says bio, even though there's some information for us there, but also you can look in the, where it says website, click on that. That's the link tree. The link tree has a whole bunch of things you can click on to be able to get in contact with us or whatever. And we can have conversation from there. There you go. But yeah, you can just look up Google Scholar. Google Scholar is something, it's a blessing. You need to be able to learn something real quick. You just put that in, right? And that's why we talk about the Bible the way we talk about it. The Bible is law and case study. Culture, right? Law and case study. If you want to understand the Bible, you got to know the laws. You got to know the cases. You got to know the study it within the environment, within the culture, within the country of Yashrael, of Israel. That's within the country of Ladash Shemayim, the kingdom of heaven. Right? That's basically what we're dealing with. It's culture. Once again, the individual is affecting the society is affecting the individual. There you go too. Yeah, thank you, Minister Tamara. You can go to a library, get Black's Law Dictionary. You can buy a Black's Law Dictionary. You can get the PDF of a Black's Law Dictionary. You can Google Black's Law Dictionary. You can get all these things and start studying and researching for yourself. You know, you probably want to make sure you're studying under somebody, whether it's myself, which I don't mind helping, or having you part of our class. We just started them recently. Or if it's, you're under somebody else, whatever the case might be, like be ready to grind and take time out and learn about it. And then you got to be obedient within it. Hey, Cool, how you doing? Cool K, what's up? My wife has the number if you want to text us, by the way, in the chat. So if you want to scroll through, look for Bloom and Flourish. That's my wife. And check out her stuff as well. She's a herbalist, chemist, healer, and biologist by degree. And her business is to make sure that you are healthy. So she gives tincture, medicines, things like that you can use that are natural medicine. You set up the business? Well, thank you. Yeah, so you can look up those things on Google Scholar. You know, Google Scholar should be your best friend if you're somebody who's in this country, right? So that's why we get back to somebody said earlier, you know, I'm not black and I'm not an American. I'm an American that happens to be black. Go to court and tell them that and see what that gets you. See, and the reason why you think it doesn't matter is because you've never used proper language. So you think that because you've never seen anything happen positive by calling yourself black or calling yourself black African American, Afro American, Black American, Native American, whatever, because you don't think you've ever seen anything positive happen because of that, you don't know what to deal with, right? But a Native American is somebody who's literally saying, hey, I'm the original American. Matter of fact, hold on one second. Let me look up something real quick while we're on here. All you guys on all these platforms, thank you for all these great questions and comments, by the way. I'm gonna look up something real quick. Forgive me for my slow typing. It is a little cold out here. Okay. So we know that an American is an original copper-colored person, right? So what does native mean, according to Black's Law Dictionary? Y'all ready? Black's Law Dictionary, here's the definition of native, okay? Native is a natural-born subject or citizen, a denizen by birth, one who owes his domicile or citizenship to the fact of his birth within the country referred to. The term may also include one born abroad if his parents were citizens of the country and not permanently residing in foreign parts. Okay? So basically, when we're talking about native becomes key, because do you not know? What they're saying here is something that's key. They're saying that a native person is somebody who was born in so if they're saying you're a Native American, they're saying you were born in the Americans. They're also saying that your parents, technically, they're being shifty and shady about it, but they're saying your parents were also born here, right? Or if you're born somewhere else, you can still be considered an American, right? Because your parents are from here, right? So those of us who have Native American parents, grandparents, anybody in our blood, anything at least of having any kind of Native American blood, we are native to here. That's why a lot of people signed up for that $5 Indian package, right? Because they wanted to be native to America, not only as far as under the 14th Amendment, but they wanted even pre-13th Amendment, they wanted to be able to say pre-America, they have some kind of rule and stuff and whatever, and they should have rights to certain money and stuff that's supposed to be given to those people, right? But here's the trick that a lot of people don't know, is that when you had your birth certificate signed, or a lot of you when you got your passport, or when you were given that Social Security card, or when you got your driver's license, even a lot of people don't even know your driver's license is another way of admitting this. What you said is that we belong to the corporation, the United States Corporation, right? Look up 3002 space 1515 space A as an apple, right? So 3002 space 15 space A. You will discover that the United States of America, the United States Corporation rather, is a corporation. It's not a real place. It's a corporation. So now that you comprehend that it is a corporation, then what is the United States of America? Right? When you understand that the United States is a corporation, then what is the United States of America? Those are 50 countries that have to protect your right as a private citizen and have to protect the public right. And you think that public means that you are public. Public means you belong to the government. Private means that the government has to protect your right to be private. So when I have somebody saying, I'm not a black American, I'm just an American that happens to be black. Like we're all over the place. But people don't know that. So we have to have these long, drawn out conversations in which people are telling us stuff that really doesn't make sense. They're having an argument because they don't understand that there's a system in place. This is systemic. Somebody systematically put something in order. They called it America. And they taught you that you're supposed to be an American, and you live as an American over and over again every single day thinking that that's what you're supposed to do. Proud to be an American, where at least you know you're free. That's what you were told. But if you get arrested as an American, you are allowed to be chattel slavery or chattel slave. 13th Amendment guaranteed that. All they got to do is be able to say that you did anything, and as long as you signed away your rights, you can be treated however you want. 14th Amendment said as soon as you were born here, you have to go ahead and say that you're an American. No, you don't. See, those who were saying, no, I'm not, I'm a state citizen, you're saying that I claim stuff that happened before the 13th and 14th Amendment. I claim stuff that happened before the Emancipation Proclamation, because while we only focus on the Emancipation Proclamation, we forget that the Emancipation Proclamation could only come into existence as long as you were in martial law. And if they never rescinded, right, what gave the president the right to make why am I forgetting the term? To create law through martial law. But what is he? Executive order. Sorry. If they had never rescinded what gives him the right to make executive order, it means that you're still in martial law. So if I tell somebody I'm not part of that, then either what they're going to have to do one of two things. They're going to have to say, well, you're under martial law. Who cares? But they don't admit that in court. So then the only thing left is, well, you're right, technically, if you're claiming something that existed before. So when I write down on something, like when you do your birth certificate or when you do your, that's why we teach these classes, like before you do your DS-11 and all that, like make sure you know how to fill that stuff out. When you get ready to do your passport, you have to make sure on there that you say that your parents were never born, are not United States citizens. And people will go ahead and put their parents United States citizens and then try to fill out the rest of saying they're sovereign and not realize that you're already messed up. Because if your parents are born somewhere, then they're native to what? They're not native to the actual United States of America. They're native to the United States Corporation, which means that they're artificial people. And artificial people don't give birth to natural men and natural women. So you're sitting up there saying these artificial people came together and made me. And they're like, well, if you're an artificial person, then you belong to the corporation, an artificial country. So when somebody tells me I'm an American, I just happen to be black, or I'm an American, I just so happen to be white, you don't know what you're talking about. White doesn't exist in there either. White was something that was just made up recently too. And white people had to believe there was a such thing as white, just like black people had to believe there was a such thing as white. Ain't no such thing as white, for real, for real. White's not even a color. You think that people have been trained to think that this is white. Like white means bright or clear. And this is all stuff that you're living by. This is natural law. You can't have substantive law without natural law. That's why when people talk about, well, they won't bring up stuff or it's in the kingdom or if they always lie, I forget who it was. It might have been Marley Marl when you were making the comment, and I get it, right? Because I used to feel the same way. Well, if they corrupt, then why should we trust anything? Well, time out on that, because that's why if the Most High makes something, right? I don't have one near me right now, right? But let's just pretend this is a seed. If the Most High made a seed, and somebody tries to sell this seed and patent it, they can't patent it because the Most High made it. But if somebody takes this seed and then takes a piece of it, genetically modifies it, and makes something different and clones the food now and gives it to you, they can patent that, right? So even though they can pervert stuff, they still have to follow a natural order. They still have to say, okay, somewhere we got to tell people this genetically modified. Even if it's hard for them to find, even if we're only saying it through the labels or the stickers on the food, we have to tell people we modified this. We have to tell people that we sprayed it. We can't just sell it as is, because they have to follow law. Laws protect your rights. You have unalienable rights. You can't be separated from your rights. And the moment we receive that part of things is a moment that we get much better. You said, isn't doing herbalism a sin? No, the herbs are for the healing of the nations. Are you using herbs to try to control people? Are you manipulating herbs? Are you praying, to the herbs? Some people do that, right? Or are you just using herbs for healing? Herbs are for the healing of the nations. That's like when people say, or why are you into precious stones, things like that or whatever. Do you not know about an ephod? An ephod is precious stones. And it was inside gold. Do you not know that money doesn't even count as money unless it's gold or silver? That's why when you see here that's parable about the talents, it's talking about there was one had 5 talents and one had 2 and one had 1. If it was gold, that would have been 200 pounds a talent, right? And if it was silver, it would have been 100 pounds. So if it was gold, it would have basically been saying one person had 1,000 pounds of gold, and therefore when he got doubled, he would have had a ton. Another person had 400 pounds of gold. When he got doubled, he would have had 800 pounds. And one person only had 200 pounds and didn't do anything with it except bury it, which is an extreme thing. That meant he had to go through an extreme amount of effort to be able to bury 200 pounds of gold and then dig back up 200 pounds of gold, right? But yeah, if Yah made it, it's natural. It's for the healing of the nation, healing of the nations. It pops up 3 times talking about that in the Bible, in Genesis and Revelation. I can't remember the other place right now, but no, to eat properly, I don't know what you're talking about doing with herbs, but to wear a herb, to eat a herb, to make herbs or whatever, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. Now, if you're going to manipulate it or genetically modify it, that's witchcraft. By definition, by actual definition of the term witchcraft, that's witchcraft, because you're trying to control something that the Most High made, and then you're trying to use it to control the people to have them to keep coming back for a drug that's going to mess us up. That's a different mindset. You said, so by reclaiming my birth certificate, this makes me a private citizen. It's one of the steps. It's a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle, but it's a lifestyle worth having, being free. But when you say reclaiming your birth certificate, you're talking about getting it certified, I guess. I don't normally go that route, but yeah, you can go that route. I normally just say it's easier to do it with your passport. You said still under martial law, right? True, most definitely. Chala checks passport. Right, and that passport is very easy to see, by the way. Most of our passports, I don't have mine with me, but most of our passport, actually, I don't know if I'd show it to you all anyway. It's because it's on for everybody to see forever, right? But if you look at your passport, you're going to see on your passport it has a spot where it says United States of America, and you'll think, oh, okay, so I'm a citizen of the United States of America, right? But then if you look at it, it'll say like what it belongs to or who it belongs to, and it'll say belongs to United States, and saying that you're part of the corporation. You need that thing to say United States of America across the board. Said herbs are synthetic drugs your doctor prescribed. Yeah, so herbs can be synthetic drugs that your doctor prescribes, but I wouldn't even call those herbs, right? Those are like counterfeit herbs, right? But yeah, those are chemical versions of it. But if you use regular herbs, so that's a great place. So if you eat, if you take pills that kind of side effects, it's because that they're not whole. Right? They messed with it to be able to genetically modify it. If you just eat the herb that the pill is supposed to be made from, then all you got to do is just eat the herb. The herb makes sure that it has no side effects. You'll be healed. And eventually you don't have to keep taking the herb. Unlike with the pills, a lot of times you have to keep taking them for the rest of your life and then take another thing because of those side effects. They all have laterogenic effects. So this effect gives you this effect, which gives you this effect, which gives you this effect, and you keep going and going and going, right? Oh, thanks, Breezy. Glad to be back. We have allowed others to tell us who we are instead of questioning the system that oppresses us. That's a big part too, right? And we as individuals have done that because, once again, there's a system in place. See, this is the problem that people have. They try to say, oh, so are you trying to say that I'm racist? No, there's racism. Racism is the system. So even if you're not racist, if you live in a system that says that white people are better than black people, then if you have myself, I've seen this happen personally over and over again. I used to be a token. I get how this works, right? Like I used to be hang around white people with a lot of money, and they would take us places, and I'd get to stay there, be the little poor black boy, even though I was never really poor, but in comparison to them, being a little poor black boy, and they were okay with me being around because I acted white enough, right? And when I went places, they could talk bad about me. And they would just say, oh, it's just a joke. Now, I'm sitting there dying inside. This is tearing me up, but I got to put on the front. Why? Because there's a system that says, hey, if you're going to hang out with these people, you got to go ahead and let them make fun of you. And don't be what now they use terms like, hey, Nakia, how you doing? Now they use terms like snowflake. Don't be a snowflake. Now they use terms like, don't be a victim, be a victor. Well, you making fun of me. And you telling me that my race doesn't matter. They'll even say that we don't see color, which is basically saying we don't see your culture as viable. Because as much as people don't want to talk about this, guess what happens? Unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to look at this, guess what? Your culture is connected to color. Do you know why Moors are considered to be black people? Because Moors were coming from Africa and from Asiatic places. For people who don't want to act like Africa used to be more than just what they tell you it is now, right? But Moors used to come from Africa, and they spread out, and so those people had dark color. And in their language, that was black. Or why is it that Spanish people called them Negro? Where there were the Carthaginians, and then later on Moors who would come through. And during all these thousands of years that they were coming through there in Spain and other places in Europe, and even reaching all the way over into Rome and Italy and the Etruscans and all these other people, and even Asians, right? Don't forget that like Bantu language is used in China and used in Japan. You're talking about the same people who went all over the world, right? And went over to South America, went over to North America, went to the land of Asheroth, all these places. And when they went to these places, what did they do? They said, oh, okay, well, these people are darker than us, so Moor became eventually what their word black is, because they're darker. So all Moors are black. That's kind of how that happened. It doesn't mean that we didn't come in different shades, but that's just what they say, right? Because they put your culture, that your culture is connected to a color, right? I don't mind it if somebody's trying to say, hey, you're trying to find Kofi. If a white person be like, yeah, he's a tall black guy over there. I don't mind that. But somebody else be like, how dare you call me black? No, like, I'm a tall black guy with an afro, this, that, or whatever. It's part of describing who I am. So that's the reason why it helps to describe a culture, because certain people, color-wise, you're usually going to be able to figure out culture. Like, for example, somebody's going, what did they used to do all the time? Now, this is racist, but what did they used to do all the time? You black? Okay, you probably like fried chicken. I mean, there are white people that like fried chicken, but what are they going to do? They're going to prescribe something to the culture because it's supposed to be us, right? Even though that's not necessarily the case for everybody, right? Or, if I wear this and I'm black, then what? I have a culture of being, I'm Hotep. Somebody would automatically assume. Now, it's not necessarily correct, but there's some things that I would agree with somebody who would say that they're into Imhotep, stuff like that, which I believe in Imhotep. He was a real person. The actual father of medicine and different things besides medicine as well, right? But your color goes with your culture. So when they say, I don't see your color, they're really in essence saying, man, I don't feel like dealing with your culture. That's really what it is. And it's also understood. If you ever understood where you came from, then you would be okay with your culture. You wouldn't have to say, I'm an American, unless you were talking about you, the original American. And if you were the original American, you would just say, oh yeah, I'm Sioux. You wouldn't need to go through the rest. I'm Wampanoag. I don't need to go through the rest. I'm Cherokee. I don't need to go through the rest. I'm Khalifa, California. Khalifa. I'm Khalifa. I don't have to go through the rest. I'm Taino. I don't have to go through the rest. I'm Inca. I don't have to go through the rest. I'm Olmec. I don't have to be Mexico because I'm Old Mexi. Right? I don't have to go through the trivial anymore. But a lot of people don't go through the trivial. Or a lot of people go through the trivial rather, and they won't go through the rest. It's at 54 in Chattanooga. All right. Amen. Glad you guys are enjoying. Being native gives you legitimate claim to this land. Yeah, And once again, that's why they did what? If you notice, they were tricky with that. They knew that you'd have legitimate claim. So what did they do? They gave $5. They did the $5 Indian thing. Then they said they used their DNA. So they said now white people's DNA is what we're going to use to say who's native or not. How much sense does that make? That's what they did. Just like when they try to do with Israel, and they try to say, white Europeans are Israel. See, their blood. Your blood has to match their blood. As if, but we know that if you're Ashkenazi or I always mess this up, Khazarian? Sorry, I always mess that word up. Anyway, when you're those two tribes, we know where you came from. You came from Yapet or Japheth. You didn't come from Shem. So why would we count your blood as the Shemitic blood? It doesn't make sense, right? And even when we prove that we have the blood, then what did they do? They call you Beta Israel. And a lot of people don't know in Greek culture, Alpha is talking about that tough male, Beta is talking about a female. So they're saying you're feminine, you're less than, you're weak, because then for them, the female is weak, right? For us, weak means actually that she's supposed to be more valuable, like a vase is more valuable. So you actually, treat a vase with respect and different and delicate. It doesn't mean that the vase can't carry anything, can't have any water in it, can't provide anything, but you treat it with respect, because it's delicate, or it's weak, or it's fragile, right? It's something that you don't want to be broken, right? A glass cup, you don't want to drop a glass cup. You can you don't want to drop a plastic one either, but the plastic one, if it breaks, it breaks, right? But if I got that glass and it's looking real nice and everything, and I drop that, right? So it's different. That's why we're talking about all this is cultural. It was put in on purpose. It's systemic. Thank you, Bo Rose. Appreciate it. I think it's Bo. If it's not, forgive me. Kahami, thanks for being on. So we're often having this conversation, and people aren't ready to go and talk about culture, and they're dismissive of the culture. Breezy said, I wonder what would happen if they genetically modify people. Could they be patented? They've been trying. They tried before COVID even, but they've been trying, especially since people started getting the new jab. They've tried a couple times. It hasn't worked in court quite yet, but it's probably just because of language. I haven't done case study on it yet, though, so I can't speak with too much relevance concerning it, or at least the proper amount of relevance I feel I should have. How can we use our talents? Well, your talents is something that's of value, first of all. We talk about here vision, purpose, and value, right? Vision, purpose, and value. Vision is being able to see something afar off. So number one, what is it that you see that you're supposed to do that nobody else can do like you do it? And notice the question. Not what is it that you see that you're just supposed to do. What is it that you see that you're supposed to accomplish before you leave the earth realm as we know it in this form that we're in? Before you leave, what is it you're supposed to do that nobody can do like you do? Have that vision. That's always important. Next then is purpose. Purpose is daily manifestation. Now we got to start figuring out what is it that you need to do every day. Have that vision. That's always important. Next then is purpose. Purpose is daily manifestation. Now we got to start figuring out what is it that you need to do every day to get to that vision. What do you need to learn? How do you need to grow? Self-accountability? What do you have set up with you to create an environment, right? To help you to get there. Then value. Do you value it? And also can you present it to others to where they value it, to where they can lend their talents to it as well, right? Write down the vision and make it plain upon the tablets, that he or she that readeth it may what? Run with it. In other words, if I write this vision down enough, even if I don't know how to accomplish it, others will like the vision because it's so clear, and they'll say, well, look, you might not know how to do this part. Let me go ahead and show you this, or let me go ahead and I'll give you the funds. Like, you might not have the funds to do this, but I'll go ahead. Like, that's what's going on with Yah's Land Project 83, right? Like, a lot of people might not have the funds to be able to give to it. However, hey, even if I don't have the funds, I'll make sure that, or you don't have the funds, cool, I want to give to that. Hey, you're not really good at, or you're just one person, so you might not be able to call everybody. Okay, cool, I'm cool with calling people. Just go ahead, send me information, I'll call people, right? Hey, you're only one person. I think people need a chance to come and have a chance to pray. So Minister Nines jumps in, boom, boom, boom. Hey, I got this for prayer, right? Like, my wife constantly and consistently, so many different things all over the place, right? That I just am not able to do. Even something like I needed to send out a FedEx extreme emergency because of a family emergency, couldn't really get it done the last few days, and realized, oh man, I need to get this out like tonight. I don't really do the FedEx stuff for us. So I don't know what I'm doing, and stuff didn't work out where it should have been as easy as it's supposed to be. I don't know how to go to step number 2 or plan B if plan A doesn't work. And she was like, oh, okay, cool, no problem. I got it. Boom, boom, boom. Gets everything done. I'm able to get there, whatever. And, not miss a beat, spend time with Solomon, et cetera, right? Because there's a vision that's established. Once the vision's established, others come in and they can say, okay, now I can add to the vision. I can help you to get there faster. Because when you get to your vision, I get to mine, right? So, but when you're talking about your talents, what is that thing that you do that nobody else can do like you? What is that thing that you would do if you never got paid? I promise you, like, forget even pay, just views. I promise you, I've talked about this plenty of times. There's so many years to where I was speaking on the same stuff and people didn't want to hear any of it. And if one person showed up to hear me speak, it was amazing. If I thought I was really doing something when we had 15 to 20 people that were showing up to a physical location and they barely showed up. But, when they showed up, once or twice, a month, I'd be like, man, I'm really doing something, right? There's many sermons that I preached where nobody showed up to. There's many times I was on YouTube for years where if one person was on live with me for 2 minutes, that was great. And then I might have 5 people that showed up and it was the same people. Matter of fact, I remember it was like this guy named Legends down in Miami, and there was a guy over in England. There was a guy in Russia. There was somebody in Sister Sabrina up in New York. There was this Sister Talitha. I think she's moved up that way as well, and all these different people, right? But it was like I thought I was doing big things because 5 people were willing to listen to me, not all always at the same time. One would come on here and then one would come on there, right? But I valued it. I grinded, and during that, my daily purpose was also not just to get the word out, but I was getting myself better. I was seeing, how does the light affect this? I was seeing, can I bounce from different platforms like we do now? Even if it was 00000 on all the platforms, on all the devices, didn't matter. Like, let me see, how do I look here? Can I do this? If somebody comes on IG, can I hit the wave button and not have to address them by name? Do people like it if I address them by name here on TikTok? Okay, cool. If I put this behind me, can they see it? Well, if they can't see it on Facebook, how can I address it to where they can see it in the notes? Like, I was learning all those things, right? So it's about doing those things. And once again, it's going to come from a cultural perspective. What is it that you're trying to represent culturally? Because what I've discovered is that as long as you're true to culture and true to yourself and true to what those whose shoulders you're standing upon, what they have for you, what I have discovered is that you don't have to chase greatness and mercy. They follow you, right? Surely the things of Elohim and his mercy will follow me all the days of my life. So I'm not tripping off of, although I love to get feedback. You guys know this by now, that we definitely ask for feedback, and we definitely, try to make sure that we have conversation. It's not just me speaking at you, but real talk. I don't do this chasing the admiration. I don't do this hoping that I don't do all this saying like, man, if I don't do this, nobody's going to give a donation. Nobody's going to know about the SOC. Nobody's going to make sure that they follow. I'm not going to get all the likes. Right? Like, if you notice, this is Kofi_43 on TikTok, right? And we're on the second YouTube channel. Like, we get cut off on all the platforms quite often. That's why I used to dress myself as the shadow band. I don't anymore, but I used to say I'm the shadow band one, because after we hit 10,000 or so, they cut us off, and then we go up again, and they cut us off, and we go up again, and they cut us off, right? Which is why we appreciate all the likes and the shares. Thank you, Sister Barbara, and all those things that you guys do showing us love. It helps with the algorithm, but the reality is that in the midst of all that, I'm not chasing that anymore. I know what my calling is. I know what the vision is. I know that I put value on it, and other people are just now catching up. Real talk. Like in my world, other people are now just finally getting to a place of, like, we see the talent that you have. Right? Oh, okay. We see that you're talking about as far as marriage. Oh, we see that you actually are living the culture. Oh, we see that you were right. Like, I was talking about this stuff 15 years ago, and others before me were talking about it too, right? But I'm just saying, I've been talking about this stuff for bare minimum 15 years. I mean, technically, you want to say 2003, 2004, I started going down this path. As far as like being all the way in, like grinding, going to make my life better, going to hold myself accountable. Wasn't perfect, but kept getting better and better over and over again. So those are the things you have to, do. What is it that you do that nobody else provides? Because not only is it important for a drive for you, it's important to realize, because it'll help your drive as well when you recognize that there's somebody out there looking for what you provide, because they can't find it from anybody else except you. If they can't find it from anybody else except you, you're going to let somebody down if you never find out who you're supposed to be and what you're supposed to do that no one else can provide. Because if you're the only one that can provide it, you're literally the only one that can provide it. So if nobody else can provide it, that means that everybody's waiting on you. You said the way we use it as a form of worship, isn't that witchcraft also? How are you using it as a form of worship? Smoking herbs. Smoking herbs isn't. There's nothing that says that you can't smoke herbs. There's nothing wrong with smudging or anything like that. It depends on why you're doing it. Are you praying to a deity that's not the Most High while you're smudging? That's different, right? But incense is is in essence smudging. I mean, we have incense in our home. Right? May our worship, may our praise be like a sweet savor in his nostrils. What is that saying? It's saying that in the temple you had incense. And so in your home, you have incense, right? You are the temple. It's okay for you to have incense, but depending on how you're using it, are you trying to attach it to something that's false or not, right? So depending on how you use something is what makes it witchcraft or not. What are the pros and cons of being free? I don't know if there's a con of being free of the United States corporation. The only thing is that you're just going to have to make sure that you live what practice what you preach. Because when they come at you, they're going and you say, I'm sovereign, this and that or whatever, they're going to say, okay, let's see. Right? Like if you say, oh, I'm sovereign, I'm this and that, they're going to say, okay, let's see your paperwork. You get pulled over talking about, see, some people who mess around and they take the plate off their car, right? Because they hear me say, you don't have to have license plates. It's like, oh, time out, bro. Make sure that you got that paperwork together. You said to worship the land, isn't that witchcraft? Yeah. Witchcraft basically is just saying one who's controlling. Really, being a witch is one that's trying to control somebody. To talk about craft, you're somebody that's creating. So if you're creating something with the express intent of trying to control somebody, then that's what witchcraft is. So do I use anointing oil, and how do you do it? Anointing oil, you're just basically taking you're praying over somebody, you anoint them. It depends. It depends on how I'm led. If we're doing by tradition, as far as the Tev, when people do this right here, that's actually an ancient Israelite mark or Tev. In Hebrew, the last character is the. That's why they even slant it. A lot of people don't know. Like they don't just put it like this, right? Vertically, they kind of have it leaning to the side, right? And they do that because that's how you write Tev, is the lowercase t. So. But yeah, you can do that as a mark or anointing. You can pray over somebody. You can touch hands with somebody. If you're talking about the traditional one, you can use olive oil or the olive oil mix. Really, the olive oil mix is the one that's there. It really, a lot of times, sometimes even you just have it over somebody and you let it pour. Back in Israel, in biblical times, a lot of times when they talk about letting the oil flow, the reason they talk about it in specific terms is because a lot of times they wouldn't even use their fingers. A lot of times they would just take the oil and they would hold it over somebody. That's what happened with David's brothers and David. He kept trying to anoint people, and either the Most High would say, that's not him, or sometimes they would even hold the oil over somebody, right? And when they held the oil over somebody, it would literally, it would sometimes not even come out. If it didn't come out, that was supposed to be a sign that you're not supposed to be anointed, right? For whatever it is that you're asking for anointing for. So there's a lot of stuff that goes in it. That's why I say culture first. Culture is always extremely important. Oh, amen, purple. Khan, amen. Try to keep these teachings. Amen. Yeah, we put them on the YouTube channel. So we try to line your path back out. I get you. Yeah, hallelujah. Hallelujah. Amen. To make jewelry and you were nervous about crystals. Yeah, crystals are natural. Yeah, crystals are natural. They're nature. The Most High made them, right? So they're crystals and natural. Once again, we're going to go over. We're not going to go over for a little bit. We're going to give a couple days. So possibly on Monday we'll restart with our last two parts of the Revelation series, Revelation 22, and then dealing with the crystals, and then a quick Q&A to finish that up with my wife if she's still available on that day. Those are things that the Most High made. Those are things that the Most High made. So, if the Most High made these things, we shouldn't have to worry about those things. Right? If the Most High made those things, then we shouldn't have to worry about those things. They're made for us. Right? They're made for us. And if they're made for us, then we shouldn't have to worry about those things. I'm sorry, hold on one second. Yeah. Anyways, though, so if these things are made for us, we shouldn't be concerned about all those things. Wow. So we have to be prepared. Long story short, we have to know better. We have to, and a lot of us don't know better, so we can't do better. But our goal is to continue to be better and to be greater. All right. Let me see. Oh, no wonder. I'm sorry, I'm sitting up here looking at settings when I'm talking to you guys. All right. Anyway, sorry about that. So yeah, we got to be prepared for those things. Real quick, we're gonna get ready to come on and or get ready to take our leave. Try and do the podcast today. Still going through a little bit of things, but we can at least try and see if we can do a little bit of podcast today as well for our Shabbat Shalom podcast. Let me see. Okay, let me see. Where to get learning about oil uses for anointing. I mean, it's in the Bible. It's in the Bible. Or you could, probably just do some Google searches. It's not too much to it. If you want to learn what the actual oil is made of, there's places you can go and look that up. This live is basically about we're getting ready to take our leave, but however the live was about the individual versus society and how there's a system in place. Yeah, thank you, Treats, by there. Yeah, we're back. Talk of herbs and crystals as witchcraft is deception to keep us separated from Yah. Right. Once again, if you look at an ephod, EPHOD, right? For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, go look up an ephod, and you will discover that it's in gold, right? Which is a precious metal. And then you'll see that there are 12 stones representing each tribe of Israel in there, 12 precious stones, right? Okay, thank you, Derek. Appreciate it. Yeah, weak doesn't. Well, first, not only does weak not change the value, weak means it's actually of more value. You're supposed to treat it better if it's weak. So when the Bible talks about the weaker vessel, it's not like a lot of people go, like a lot of women are offended. They go, the weaker vessel. What are they trying to say? They're trying to say we weak. No. They're saying you should actually be treated with high respect. Matter of fact, a lot of people don't know in the Bible, when it uses the term woman is always a term of endearment. See, because we're in somebody else's system, you hear woman, you be like, woman? That's what you think. But back then, if you heard somebody say woman, you're saying woman, like woman. They're saying like you're precious. Like, please listen to me. Like, hey, like you're precious. I didn't mean any offense. They would have said woman. Nowadays, you say woman, you trying to denigrate somebody. But in our culture, you say woman, you say woman. Like you're lifting them up. See, culture is very different. Yeah, all history doesn't pertain to us necessarily. So you're going through block vision. You don't know anything other than what to do other than meditation. Even in meditation, how do you meditate? Meditation's a lot different, but it's cultural. We got to get ready to jump off here, though. So I apologize. About to start traveling again. Now that everybody's healthy, we're going to do some travel again. All right, I think I caught up. Looks like I caught up with everybody. That's how I feel about natural sugars and fruits and veggies. Elohim made them. Yeah. Yeah, there's no, like when people say no calories, things like that or whatever. I think, yeah, Minister Tamara, we'll do the Shabbat Shalom or Shabbat Shalom on the podcast. That's why I'm going to get ready to take it. YouTube channel is not in the bio, even though it's just hashtag Find Kofi, hashtag FINDKOFI. However, if you look in our website where it says website, our link tree is there. Click on the link tree, and then you'll be able to click on the YouTube channel. But if you just look up hashtag Find Kofi, hashtag FINDKOFI on any of these platforms that we're on, we'll pop up. I can't go. I gotta go. Usually we be on longer, but Saturdays we usually keep short anyways because we have a podcast that we do. I'm thinking that because for both meetings, we're supposed to have YLP 83 meeting. I think I'm going to have to do some one-on-ones and just have some meetings with people during the day, every day this week to get the YLP 83 thing done because of what happened this week. I'm not fully prepared for it. We could. I couldn't even do the meeting today. Just this whole thing of this week and us being sick and different things going on has us all over the place. So I do apologize. But I'll be reaching out to as many people as possible. I'll be trying to let people know, different times that I'll try to be on to have some discussions with people. And maybe you guys can just kind of funnel in. And if not, we'll make sure that we do some one-on-one stuff. Maybe I even do some recordings for you guys and just have something where you can get the unlisted recording so you can at least hear what's going on in my mind. But still dealing with health stuff and things like that. So not out of the woods yet. So I can't really say, unfortunately, a lot of stuff for sure. So do I know of sea moss perchance? Just purchased some in jail. Don't know what to mix it with. Sea moss, sea moss period is great. Anything that you want to mix it with for the most part. My wife is on, so she might have to, but as far as just the only thing I think as far as mixing of it or whatever is probably just because of taste. How do you find the podcast? Podcast is in the bio. So just look in the bio, you'll be able to find the podcast. Bio is the Kofi, or it's called the Kofi Ofori Podcast. But if you look in the bio, you should be able to find the podcast. So, but thank you all. I'm gonna go ahead and take a quick break. We got to get ready for the next part of it. I'm not even sure if we'll go the full hour like we normally do, but we'll try to get in there as to get things back on track though. So thank you all for being on. Appreciate you. Once again, check out my wife, the Honorable Maya, Bloom and Flourish, not A-N-D, but the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. You can find her on TikTok, YouTube, and her website, and also on Pinterest. The letter N, not A-N-D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. Thank you for listening in. As always, we hope that you not only hear this word, but you study and meditate on it so that you might be able to develop and be able to have it for yourselves. And we're thankful and grateful that you would be able to execute that word. Don't just be hearers, be doers as well. Get ready to hear from you guys soon, or talk to you guys soon, rather, in about 15 minutes or so. And until I have a chance to be before you all again, this has been Pastor Kofi, pastor of Servants of Christ, where we're always changing lives one mind at a time by being a voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. Until I have that chance, please remember as always that you are loved. You are necessary, you are majestic, you are fearfully and wonderfully made in you, which is all of us working together will be the reason why people who are in this system no longer have to be of it. Shabbat Shalom, fam. We'll talk to you later. And no class tonight. Classes will start again on Monday. Thank you. Peace.